the homily for the fifth Sunday after Pentecost, the 2nd of July 2023. Well, a good Sunday morning to all you, my St. Francis family. I'm glad you could make it to fellowship with us today. As you know, Father Jeff is on vacation, and I've been drafted to present today's homily. So, for all our sakes, let's hope and pray that I do a good job. Yes. And today, I want to concentrate on the first reading from Genesis, that about Abraham, because it contains a foundational element of our belief system. And that utterly important element is faith, F-A-I-T-H. Now, the book of Hebrews tells us that faith is the substance or realization of things hoped for, the evidence or conviction of things not seen. And that's Hebrews 11:1. In basic language then, faith is believing for or on or in something that you don't yet see, but are assured that it will come to fruition and reality eventually. And furthermore, Hebrews tells us also, but without faith it is impossible to please God. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And you can find that in Hebrews 11:6. And that's why faith is ever so important in our belief system, my people. Believing in the goodness of God is the key to faith. It's what gets us through life as believers in Christ Jesus. And it's very easy to talk faith, yes, but walking it, actually living it, it is an entirely different thing. And Jesus asks a very important question on the subject while here on earth. He asks, nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? And that comes from Luke 18:8. And what's the answer? Right now, the lack of true faith, especially in Christ's church, is badly needed. We talk a lot, but fail to walk the talk. Anyhow, that's a question for another time. Let's finally get to the reading about Abraham in Genesis 22. The opening statement is, after these things, God tested Abraham. Whoa! That sets the stage right there. And it's a very significant statement. For at 75 years of age, Abram, that was his name then, had already shown his faith in an unknown God when he left his home and extended family in Haran and set out with his wife Sarah and nephew Lot for places unknown, based only on God's promise to guide and bless him greatly. And you can find that in Genesis 12:12. And all through his wandering years in the lands of Canaan and Egypt, Abraham was obedient as humanly possible to God, and God had kept his promises. But though Abraham was abundantly wealthy in material things, he lacked the most important thing in a family in those days. That's a son, an heir to all his wealth. For his wife Sarah was barren. And although the Lord had faithfully promised him a son from his own loins, it seemed like it would never happen. So Sarah got the heir. So to get the heir they needed, Sarah took matters into her own hands and unwisely offered her Egyptian handmaiden Hagar to Abraham as a secondary wife. And from that union, the boy Ishmael was born. And we all know the dysfunction it created in the family. However, the long and short of the story is that when Abraham was 100 and Sarah 90, some 25 years after the Lord promised them a son, the child Isaac was born to Sarah. Yes, finally, the heir to the fortune had arrived and was growing into a fine lad. When, in the reading, out of the blue, the Lord said to Abraham, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go into the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you." Abraham must have been flabbergasted. He had waited so long for an heir from his own loins, and now the Lord was telling him to sacrifice his only son, on whom the promises of many descendants and great nations were based. If he sacrificed Isaac, how would those promises come true? But nonetheless, Abraham did as the Lord asked. Now, let's pause a moment here and look at our individual lives today. We are all tested at one time or the other. The question is, do we obey God with the alacrity and confidence that Abraham did, especially on such a heart-rending topic? Not very likely, no. And possibly only after trying to reason with God. And even then, we might only do a part of what God tells us to do, like Saul, the first Israelite king. And the story about Saul is the Lord, through the prophet Samuel, told him to totally destroy the Amalekites, every human being and every animal they possess, for their earlier mistreatment of Israel. But Saul and the people saved the king Agag and the best of their animals. And that can be found in 1 Samuel 15, 1-9. Then, when Samuel shows up and sees Agag and hears the noise of the animals and asks Saul why, Saul claimed that he feared the people and obeyed their voice to save the best of the animals for a sacrifice to God. But unfortunately, by then, God had already turfed Saul as king, because he did not totally obey his order. Yes, friends, partial obedience is still disobedience. As Samuel lectured Saul, had the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken or listen than the fat of rams. And that comes from 1 Samuel 15:22. And believe me, people, those words are ever so true. However, getting back to the reading where Abraham has obediently set out to do the Lord's bidding, it continues. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place far away. Then he said to the young men that accompanied him, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy," that's Isaac, "and I will go over there, and we will worship, and then we'll come back to you." Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. So the two of them walked on together. And that's where it gets really interesting. As Isaac said to Abraham, "Father," and he said, "Here I am, my son." Isaac then questioned, "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God himself will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." No, that's either real great faith or on Abraham's part, or plenty heifer dust. But the boy needed a non-frightening answer. Anyway, they get to the place the Lord decreed for the sacrifice. Abraham builds the altar and lays the wood upon it, then binds Isaac on top of the wood. We don't know what passes between them when those scary things are happening. But finally, it's all ready. And the reading says, "Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son." But the angel of the Lord called him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. Then the angel said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide, as it is to this day. On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Oh, my fellow saints, in these troubled and dangerous times, we all desperately need to believe that the Lord will provide for us if we have the faith to trust in Him, to surrender our very lives to His all-knowing and wise compassion. No, it's not easy to do. But if we truly believe, like Abraham and so many other heroes in the book of Hebrews did, then the Lord will certainly work on our behalf. And let's not forget that the Lord provided a replacement for Isaac, but there is no one available to replace his son Jesus Christ. And the Lord sacrificed him on our behalf. That's how much He cares for us. Let's never forget that and allow it to boost our faith that's so badly needed in these turbulent times. Much love.